fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren, and we've got Mr. Gavin Stone, hard as a rock here.
I'm not going to say. You're going to get me in trouble from the very beginning here, aren't you, Alan?
I loved having Gavin on, you can embarrass him so easily,
I embarrass myself. It's a pastime.
Well, you should be happy. Stone, I'm telling you, that's a great name. I love your name.
It is. It's one of those things that, you either make yourself deliberately a victim in high school where they're trying to punch you to say, see, I can get blood from a stone. Or you get the ones who are a bit hippie that kind of like just want to get stoned, which is all right if you're into hippie chicks. But there's always the bonus of when things are going to get tough, they're going to turn to stone. So I'm the local default for people calling for kind of when things go wrong, to come and help me out.
Yeah, I think of like a tough agent, Stone. Lots of guns.
Yes.
Can do somersaults, karate, all that sort of ninja stuff.
I can do a somersault, not always intentionally, but I have been known to do a few somersaults, usually after a few too many beers.
Well, that's not the right ones, but so our guest, he could do that. I mean, he's got the name that's definitely secret agent name, right? Eric P. Bishop. You see, that sounds like a detective.
I don't know if I've heard that before. I tend to normally get whether are you Catholic or are you a chess piece, and I just say, I don't know, it's one and the same.
No, I could use that name if I was writing about a detective, EP or Eric Bishop. That sounds good, Detective Bishop.
I didn't have to use a pen name, which is nice, and I didn't want to. I had actually had that discussed early on with people. They're like, you use your real name, or are you going to go with a pen name? And I'm like, man, I'm finally living my dream and writing books. Why would I make up a new name?
Exactly.
No, it's true. Unless you're running from the law or something, right? I use a pen name because my name's Sally Bonjour, so I can't use that. So I have to make it sound more, rough and tough. Well, listen, I saw you were in Vegas. You were at that new stadium, the Dome.
The Sphere.
Okay, there you go. Yeah,
yes.
So was it good? What do you say about that?
Sometimes you overuse certain words in the English language, and amazing is obviously one of them. People call a lot of things amazing that really aren't probably that amazing. That venue, I think, would be qualifying under amazing, at least from my perspective. And I know since I went back in November with my son, there's been a couple of Fish did a series of shows. The Dead were there, I think, for a couple months. Eagles are coming. It's one of those places you have to go to experience. The videos you see online, the people like me that tell you about it, doesn't live up to how cool it really is. It simply was amazing.
It looked pretty good, actually. It did. When I saw that, I thought, wow, that does look really cool. How was the sound? Like I saw you were at U2, I think. Is the sound good and everything?
It's incredible. It's incredible. I think they've spent, I'm trying to remember now, I should know, $3.2 billion. I know it was multiple billion. I think it was $3.2 billion they spent. And there's something like over like maybe 180 or 200,000 speakers inside the arena, inside the stadium. And yeah, the sound come at you, but it's not coming at you aggressively. It wasn't super loud, but it's just coming at you almost from every angle. So there wasn't, and we were on the floor, but we were about 3 rows back from the stage. There wasn't a bad, like the sound just every direction was incredible. And I think even up in the seats, because we had just floor, no seating, it was just floor standing. I think in the seat sections, they actually have speakers, I think, built into the seats as well, if I recall hearing. So, yeah, I can't wait to go back and see another show there. The problem is that I've been to a lot of concerts, and that U2 show is top of the list, and nothing's even remotely close. So going back again probably be somewhat disappointing, but I try to keep an open mind on stuff. So
yeah. Depends on who it is and how they do in that kind of a venue, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It'd be pretty good. So here you go. You've got another book out. What's going on with you?
Yeah, so Breach of Trust came out in June, came out this summer, June of 2024, and it was kind of one of these long-anticipated, long-promised books that finally saw the light of day about 2 years after I thought it was going to. The quick story on that is, part of it is because the publisher actually rejected it at first, which there's a whole lot to that conversation, but that was quite surprising because I had some pretty well-known and big-name readers of the book ahead of time, and they're all like, hey, it's better than The Body Man, and I thought it was better than The Body Man, and then the publisher did not feel like it was better than The Body Man, so that was humbling, it was disappointing, it was frustrating, it was a lot of different words. I believed in it, though, so I basically said, well, this is the book, so it was a way that, unfortunately, I parted ways with the publisher, and then soon thereafter, the publisher actually went out of business. The positives on that is then I got the rights back to The Body Man, to the first book, so I decided to go indie at that point. I said, you know what, it's hard to pitch a series that's already been gone through another publisher to a new one, and I had pretty solid success with The Body Man, and I just decided I'm going to parlay off that success and keep going with this series, at least for the time being, under my own brand, and here we are, summer 2024, and 2 books out, a novella out last year in a different series, and now a full-length novel coming out later this year in that different series as well. So yeah, I'm hustling.
Right. So after you put that publisher out of business,
yes, after I single-handedly made the money.
Yeah, after you took them down with your terrible book. Well, no, that actually happens, because I even after I had a few books and I did the Killing Game and nobody wanted it, I got turned down 3 times, and I just self-published. Mm-hmm. And then when I started doing all the TV about it, and they made that really awful movie on it, a lot of publishers wanted it. It's just how it is, They don't always know. They're not always right.
No, oh no. And I don't hold any grudge towards the publisher. The fact that they rejected it is, again, it's such a subjective business, and that's why I try to tell new readers or new authors I interact with, and they get real frustrated. And I'm like, you got to remember, someone turned down Rowling in the Harry Potter series, and not just one person did. And there's people that would still say it's a horrible series, I'm sure, me. But from a financial, and yeah, I can understand, but again, that's where it's so subjective. Right. You can't argue with the money it's made, but you could argue with the quality of the writing that made that money. Absolutely. But what I try to tell people is, look, you've got to remember, if someone tells you no, that doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean your book is horrible. Now, you might be both of those things, but try to have a little bit of thicker skin and go on to the next one. And then if that one closes the door, go to the next one. And it's a game of attrition is what publishing is, which most creative fields, musicians, whatever else, it's an attrition thing.
Yeah, I did see a thing not so long back. I thought it was absolutely great. It said being a writer and not wanting to get rejected is a bit like being a boxer not wanting to get punched.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think to me, the most important thing is the story. If you're writing a storybook, it's all about the character and the story. You might not have the best words and you might not be the best trained and the most academic, but you can still have a really good story, have something to say, and it means something to a lot of people. It touches a lot of people, and that is what it's about. The other stuff is just kind of polished, so to speak. So, I mean, it's not like we're talking some sort of literary fiction. We're not talking some sort of heavy-duty thing here. We're talking about stories. We're talking about characters. We're talking about life. Talking about you too.
Talking about you too, absolutely. Yeah, and it's I tell people too that the amazing thing about doing that is even if you don't achieve a level of success with it, or you don't get a big publisher, whatever. Everyone has dreams and aspirations. Even if you don't meet them, if you're enjoying telling the story, if you enjoy the process of getting the stories out of your head, you're succeeding. By finishing the novel, you're succeeding. It's just a question of what does that success look like and what does it parlay into. And
what are you getting out of it? Like because when you write a book, like you said, it's important that you get something out of the story. What do you get out of it when you accomplish each book?
So I've said this in other interviews. I have a podcast as well, so this will come up every now and then. And it sounds probably fairly selfish to say it, but I write novels for myself. So if I write a chapter, or especially when I get done the end of the book, and I'm proud of what I did, if I made myself laugh, if I entertained myself with the story, that's the only reason I did it. That was I accomplished my primary objective, which is to start a story, finish it, and think I did a really good job with it. How it's received and all that becomes out of my control really quickly. So ultimately for me, it's the joy of telling the story I want to tell and enjoying that process. And I've enjoyed every story I've ever told. Some I haven't tried to publish, some I haven't done anything with, but I've been able to kind of almost like get the demons out of your head, however words you want to use for it. But you get, because those stories become part of what's, rattling around inside your brain sometimes for weeks or months or years. So to be able to get that out. And then I didn't think I was going to enjoy it after the first one or when the first one was coming out, but I actually really enjoy the fact of once something publishes to me, at least in my experiences, I can't change it anymore. It's done. It's out there. Copies of it are being bought. So I like the fact that I can almost at that point just put it to sleep and not even think about it anymore. Just move on to the next one.
Let's talk about the premise of this. This is book 2 in the Bodyman series. So what have you got going on in book 2?
Well, so book 1 was a lot of a reveal of who this character, the Bodyman, was, and he spent a majority of time on an oil platform being tortured. So it was limited in the scope. So a lot of it was told from an FBI agent perspective of who this character was, and of course he gets revealed during the sessions he's being tortured and interrogated and all that stuff. So I wanted book 2 to, now that the character is out there, I wanted book 2 to be a little bit more reveal of who this person is that fulfills this role of the Bodyman, and also get them out of an enclosed space and get them to start moving around more. So Breach of Trust takes on a much more international flair. Essentially, in the first book, you had a group called the Sanctum who kidnapped the Bodyman. So in book 2, the president actually starts an organization called Operation Red Star, and their job is to take down this ruthless organization that's basically a crime syndicate, and the Bodyman is put in charge of that. So him and a team get to go hunt them down, and so he, gets to exact a little bit of revenge in one way, and also he able to kind of get out of the confines of the White House as well.
What time period is this exactly then?
Present day. Basically, I don't put an exact time frame on it, but it's a kind of a present day story.
Do you like aging your characters?
I haven't had to so far, because with this series, you're only looking at probably around a year time span. So, going forward, it's something I'm definitely considering. But even the third book, that I've got planned is kind of continuation of the second. So the time frame on it's fairly small. And I don't know, one thing that's come up in other conversations and stuff is I don't know that I intend to write a character for 20 books. I don't intend to do a Mitch Rapp or a Jack Ryan type book where I just have this character go through all these phases of life, at least not currently. So I don't see I'm going to need to be too concerned about the lifespan or age of this character.
Why don't you see yourself doing something like that long?
Well, I do and see myself writing for that period of time, but I don't see it being based on this one character. And part of why I devised the role of the Bodyman in that series is I wanted to be able to span different protagonists. I didn't want it to be, again, a Mitch Rapp that just is on for 25 years and just keeps having one unbelievable thing happen to another. And which I respect those books. Trust me, I'm a huge fan of those books. They become, after several years or several books, more of, what do you throw at Mitch and how does he not die? How does he make it to the last page? And people enjoy that. I just grow tired of that after a little while. So I wanted to have a role instead of a character, one particular character that will fill that role indefinitely. That's the way I'm doing it now. But yeah, I do intend to keep writing. Again, I'm trying to spin off other characters too into their own type of books. So I'm creating a universe, especially with the book that I'm working on at the end of this year. There is some tie back into, even though it's a completely different set of characters and, it's parallel time period. So there is a tie back to the Bodyman series, which I just wrote recently, actually, which was very fun.
So it's a bit like a Doctor Who kind of scenario then. So as you can just replace your main character whenever you get bored of him.
Yeah, and I've mentioned that to some folks. I like the idea that you can take a main character and you can kill him at some point. But if you've got a character that literally is the series, and that is, there's other offshoots, other characters in that series, but if you've got one main one that, if you've got James Bond can't die. Obviously in movies we have different James Bonds come along, different actors, but in the books, you kill James Bond, you kill your cash cow. I like the idea that maybe down the line, and who knows how many books from now, Nick Jordan, who's the current body man, he's not as successful in stopping whatever plot or whatever's going on as he was the book before, and the apprentice has to step in and be the new body man.
How have you found it when it comes to naming characters? Because for me, it's almost like picking a name for a child. Me and my wife, we went through all sorts to pick names for our daughter, and before we even knew, boy or girl, we went through that. And I remember writing my first sets of characters. I was like, no, this name's not masculine enough. This name's used too often. Mm-hmm. Then I'd check it out as somebody else used this character. And I'm like, damn, he's been used in that series. And so it's really, really difficult. And you for me, I had a book of baby names, and eventually I decided to go a particular route. How was that little setup for you?
So I use a lot of Google on name searches. So depending on what my character is from, because I try to use, if I'm basing a character in a certain country, I want to make sure that that's a name that's appropriate. I'm not having a John Smith from India or anything like that. Although maybe there's a John Smith in India, and God bless him. But so I definitely, so names will just come to me. The short answer is they come to me. And I'll stew over them in my head for a little bit. And then if I kind of like the way it flows, I'll quickly go to Google and say, okay, Gavin Stone, how is this weird new character I've created for this British series, Gavin Stone. I'm like, oh crap, there's a Gavin Stone in Britain already. Or, there's a person named that, or, names are pretty common. So you'll find people's names that show up. They have a LinkedIn account or a Twitter account, but it's characters. Okay. Is there a big name character that because there's so many books that are written. I don't know all the characters in all the books that are out in any given probably 6-month time period. So I will Google it and see, is that, a character name that's being used, at least that's gotten some notoriety.
Yeah. Have you ever written a character that in your head, you've got this perfect image of who and what they are, and you've named them, and then gone down to somewhere and, out of town, you meet some guy who's got the exact name of your character, and he's absolutely slaughtering you. Like, no, that's it. You can't have that name.
I have not. No, I'm trying to think now. Now you're making me wonder. No, I've not met anyone named my characters so far. But I would have to change it if I met someone that didn't live up to the name and the book hadn't been published yet. Yeah, I could possibly, and I don't hold the names that, they mean a lot to me, and there's some of the characters in some of the books I write that are real people too. That's always fun. And I'll give away names sometimes in contests, or, I'll normally name someone I know in my close circle in a book. I might change a little bit of the name, the spelling, or maybe I might change the first or the last name somewhat. But there are some that end up being 100% that person's name.
Okay. I recently remember somebody turned around to me and said, I'm going to put you in a book, but you're not going to be under your own name, but I'm going to put you in there. And he turned around and said, you're one of the characters, and when it comes out, you'll have to see if you can guess which one it is. And I thought, okay. And of course, when the book came out, morbid curiosity, I strayed onto Amazon and I bought a copy because I wanted to know. I'm reading through the book, and all of a sudden it dawned on me. I thought, clever mother, he has done the smartest thing in the world. He's probably told me and probably 1,000 other people that I'm a character in the book, and he's got us all buying it because we all think we're in there. I thought, I'm going to use that tactic next time I publish something.
As soon as you started explaining it, my brain immediately said, man, you just tell people that, and then you don't have to use their real name. It's like, hey, sucker. That's the greatest idea ever.
Yeah. So, we're all going to be doing that in a few weeks' time now, I think.
Alan, if you can give me a full list of all the people in Canada, we need to do a group email here at the end of the year for the next book, because they're all going to be in Babylon Will Rise.
Yeah, start with Jonas.
Start with Jonas.
Well, where do you get your character from? How did this body man appear to you?
Well, the funny thing is the actual concept for the book came to me years ago. I was actually doing a cleaning job. I was married at the time, had a nice crazy mortgage payment, and I was, just barely hanging on for dear life. And so I had to have a Friday night cleaning job at a fire sprinkler company. I actually drove by one of their trucks the other day, Dybaco Fire Sprinkler, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen one of those trucks in years. And I just laughed. But, so I was in that building that night, and I walked in, had turned the security system off, and I had this just thought run through my brain. I was wanting to come up with a new novel. My first couple hadn't been sold, hadn't got an agent, so I was kind of discouraged. And I said, man, maybe I just need to try something different, write something different. I'm focusing too much on this one series that's not getting anywhere. And I had this idea just popped in my head, and it said, there's always someone who knows where the bodies are buried. And I was like, what the heck kind of an idea is that? But then I answered my own question, and I said, okay, who would know where the bodies were buried? And I answered, again, my psychosis kicked in, and I immediately said, well, the body man. And then I remembered there was a news story at some point before that, I don't know if it was a year or 2 years before that, President Obama at the time had a person that worked for him named Reggie Love, and Reggie was referred to as the body man in the media. And so I started kind of thinking about that role, and I quickly thought, well, that's a horrible idea for a book, because this person walks around and holds Barack's Blackberries and his smokes, and probably has his credit card to buy stuff when they're out. I'm like, that'd be a boring story. And then I had like 3 hours in this cleaning job, and I just came up with the concept of, what if you had a role in the White House that came out of the Secret Service world, and their job wasn't to protect the president physically, but what if their job was to protect the office? And this person was referred to as the body man, and their job was to protect the office of the presidency. And sometimes that might entail protecting the office from the occupant himself or herself. So that's kind of where so I had like that 3 hours, and by the end of the 3 hours, I had a high level concept of the book out, and I started thinking about this character, the body man, of what would they be? What would they be able to do, not do? What authority did they have? And it's just kind of, I spent about 6 months at that point just kind of figuring stuff out, researching stuff, figuring out what was real, what wasn't, and just crafting it before I even started writing.
Oh. And how did you get into the torturing part of it? You said in the book one he's tortured a lot. So what do you do to get yourself ready to write a torture scene, let's say?
Typically kidnap people, and just hold them in the shed in the backyard, and, hope that the black helicopters don't fly overhead and the Suburbans don't show up, and just...
You're that guy. I've heard about you.
No. That's an interesting stuff to write about, because the torture isn't obscene, but I needed to have, so the way my idea of the story sounded best was, you have this character called the Body Man. In the first chapter, they get abducted. Well, why would someone abduct them? And if they did abduct them, what would they be wanting from them? And so that was kind of where that germ of an idea started. And then when I got them into where they were being tortured or interrogated, it was an oil platform in the Gulf of Mexico. Did a lot of research into formerly used oil platforms and what happens to them and all that, and what they're used for. And in real life, there's not good stuff that happens on oil platforms. The drug trade uses them. The illicit flesh trade uses them. They bring in people from South America, and it's a waypoint until they bring them into the United States by boat. The more I researched real stuff, the more it kind of added to me of going, okay, I want to make one of these oil platforms a place that Sanctum, the crime syndicate, takes over, and they use it basically as a black site, or as a site where you can do interrogations and tortures and whatever else they need to do, which is not a very interesting thing to research. It gets you probably on a lot of search, a lot of government, watch lists and stuff. So the torture scenes themselves, I didn't want them to be overtly aggressive or gruesome, but they were very specific. They were trying to get information from him. So what do you use to do that? You have psychological stuff you can use. You can use drugs. You can use, obviously, physical torture. And I tried to go very mild on all that. But I talked to some folks that are familiar with that type of thing to get some information, researched a lot of it online that I could find, and then just let my imagination, kind of like what would push me as a person to reveal stuff, and it would probably be much lower threshold than someone who's equipped to deal with this type of stuff. Yes, very interesting to be able to mess with. No, there is no one in my show, just so the NSA and all these.
Yeah, I do remember getting that email off the NSA, just telling me, keep your eye on this guy for a week or two.
Just a week?
Yeah, I got one about Gavin Stone as well, so you might be on the list as well, my friend.
I can guarantee it.
Oh, yeah, he's probably the one doing the torturing in the basement. You know, I know. When you were saying that, are you doing much character development at all then, or? Yeah.
I do. So I end up having, so for my characters, especially early on when I first started writing, I would go into like a lot of detail of like, I would even go down to what's their hair color, where'd they go to school, what's their favorite food. I don't do that as much in the last couple books as I did for the first ones, but by going through those processes in the early books, it allowed me to at least kind of flush out what I need to decide on for each character. So, and I've talked about this with some other folks, because some people are very specific when they write, like they have a visual of what their character looks like and how they walk and what dialect, you know, how their words come out, how they say it. I don't go to that degree. I think partially I don't go to that degree because if they ever get picked up and it gets made into a movie, I don't want that mental like, oh man, that's not who I wanted. Oh, that's nothing like us. So I try to keep all that out of my head. And so the dialogue is very specific when I'm writing that, of course, but I have the background figured out. Like I know roughly like where did they grow up? What was their situation? Because for some of the characters that I have, especially the more tortured souls, what gets them to that point? You know, I have a female character she's in the Body Man, she's in Breach of Trust. Called Mercy de Atta. And so she's a female assassin. And so I had to come up with her whole backstory, because what would make this attractive woman want to kill people for a living? And, you know, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of go at that. And so her background I got pretty specific in, and I did that intentionally also because once I figured her out and I kind of had written that information down in a notebook, she ended up being the one character in the Body Man I got a lot of emails about, like, that would be a good character for her own book. And it got me thinking, and that's actually a book that's coming out next year, called Supreme Justice, which focuses on her. So to get her flushed out, I had to know what her parents like. Why did she, what occurred in her past that would make her want to be this seemingly ruthless killer for hire.
Right.
So.
Any difficulty, or how do you go ahead and write a female character like that? Like, what do you do?
Probably do it all wrong. Especially if you ask my ex-wife, probably be like, geez, this guy does not know what he's talking about. No, I just try to, because obviously I'm male and I think in male terms. And so I try to just in my head get into like, okay, what would really drive a woman? You know, a woman might not necessarily be as interested in the physical appearance a man is. Maybe a woman is looking for more strength or more for character. Or, you know, depending on the characters. If I want to have a female character that's not interested in any of that, she just does want, you know, she wants Brad Pitt. She wants the $1 million, or she wants this and that. Then, I kind of think about it in those terms. But yeah, I just try to, as best I can, get myself in the head of how would a woman handle that situation different. I've got a few ladies I know that I can go to for questions as well, but most of the time I just try to internalize of what makes this character different. You know, what are her aspirations and how they different from the male character I might be writing.
Okay, so with that in mind, are there, kind of times when you put yourself in the head of that female character and then find that you struggle to park the car?
Not yet. Not yet, but also most of my female characters have, well, it's not fair to say. I was going to say they've been more minor characters, but no. In the Body Man, the FBI agent Kat Stone was a pretty predominant one. But again, I guess with Kat, I had to figure out her backstory. Okay, and she was a military brat, joined the FBI, and she had, you know, kind of this stuff that happened in the military when she was younger that kind of helped form her character. So she's very sarcastic. She doesn't take crap from any guy. So my main FBI guy she's linked up with, she's partnered with, is just a total ballbuster. So he's always given her grief, and in the past, he'd give someone grief, male or female, and, you know, because he's kind of the senior agent, they take it. Kat throws it back to him twice as hard. And all of a sudden, he has to deal with the fact of, you got this young 20-something-year-old woman fresh out of the academy, and not only can she take the crap, she can deal it better than him, which was fun. So she was a character that I did actually have to kind of get a good understanding of, and I plan on writing for her again in the future. I have a book planned for her and Eli, actually.
Funnily enough, I actually know somebody in the CIA called Eli. His second name isn't Payne, though. And with the name you mentioned there, Catherine Stone, I thought to myself, you know what, we should do a big reveal one day and say it's secretly written about my cousin.
Oh no, is that your cousin?
Yeah, but no, it's. I mean, when I saw the two names, you know, I thought, oh, brilliant, because like I said, I do actually know a guy in the CIA, quite high up in the CIA, called Eli. So it was, and then seeing Stone next to it, I thought, oh, how about that coincidence?
Well, the agency gave me a good workup on you years ago, and I made sure I used some of those characters because I knew one day our paths would cross.
That's it, yeah.
So, you know, I do my homework.
That's it. Oh, wow. You know, you've probably got that little machine that allows you to view into the future. Other people know it as watching The Simpsons.
I don't need that. You live in this great country called Great Britain, and CCTV is everywhere. I just can watch you when I need be. I just hit it on my laptop, and it pulls up. And go, oh, that's what Gavin's doing today. Okay, well, we could use that for a future book.
Interesting fact here, the UK actually has more CCTV than the rest of the world combined.
I do know that fact,
Did you?
actually. It's one of the things I was researching years ago. Yes, it's kind of, and now you know this better than me, but there was I don't know if they still have it or not, but a couple years ago they started a program you could voluntarily put a camera in your house, like in case if you were worried about like domestic abuse or whatever, you could voluntarily have a camera inside your house.
And the camera systems here are absolutely crazy, and with what I know about like kind of the intelligence services here as well, and the systems that they've got, I mean, we're talking beyond facial recognition. They have software that can identify you. The algorithms can pick you up from your walk.
From your gate,
and there's even more beyond. You know, they've got so I mean, and that was like years and years ago. And there are ways around these things, and I kind of teach operatives. Is what we used to teach, yeah. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing. You can be in London, you can be on as many as something like 57 cameras in one spot at one time.
That's incredible. Yeah, when I've been about a year and a half since I've been to London. Of course, we talked recently, and I plan on being back there in November. And I just walk around constantly with my middle finger scratching my forehead. I figure at least I'll entertain somebody back in the headquarters that's watching me as the yank goes through Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, keep your eye on those Yankees. You just don't know what's going on there.
Exactly.
So there you go. And so what's coming up now? What are you doing now? You said you were working on some other books.
Yeah, so now that Breach of Trust is out, so the second one's out in the Body Man series. It's doing quite well. At the end of the year, I plan on putting out the second book in the Omega Group series. So that one's called Babylon Will Rise. The elevator pitch on that one is basically we have 2 rogue nuclear weapons that are out there on the black market, and the Omega Group gets called in to retrieve them before they fall into the wrong hands. So that's, that one, again, it goes to the editor October 1st, so I'm kind of quickly and feverishly trying to fix the boo-boos of what I've written in the past so it, is cleaner. And then next year I plan on, Supreme Justice, which is my Merci story, her standalone, which will be tied into the world of the Body Man as she's been. And then I plan on a prequel story at the end of next year, for my character Troy Evans, who's part of the Omega Group, kind of why he started on the path of following his dad and being an FBI agent. His dad was a special agent in charge of a Western office. And then 9/11 happened and it changed everything. So Troy was in college at the time, and it pivoted his life to join the Army and start hunting down terrorists. So that one will be out. And then at that point, I probably might stop my 2 books a year. I do want to get these ones out, and then I might just go back to one. We'll see. I have a day job, I have kids, I travel, I have a pretty enjoyable life, honestly, and I don't think it's possible unless I can ditch my day job to get out 2+ novels a year going forward after 2025. But we'll see. Yeah. Anything.
Well, you should start writing some, romance or something, maybe.
50 Shades of the Body Man might just be the way to fund my Fiji island, because thrillers, they sell well, but it's a small piece of the pie. So, got some other stuff. I'm working on another project with some other authors. We'll start revealing information on that in the next couple months. I'm writing a short story right now for a comic book, of all things, so I've been working on that as well. So I enjoy the creative process. And I know the more I can put out there, the more experience it gives for me, the more I can grow my readership. I have a podcast as well, A Tale of Two Scribes. So I get to, I had Gavin on recently, and that's a fun thing I get to do, is just bring on writers and talk about the process and help give them exposure and, just stay kind of closely connected to the writing world.
Yeah, it's always fun being exposed. Well, let's see. What's your social media? So people have it or website?
Yeah, so my website is my name, ericpbishop.com. So the P is my middle initial, stands for Paul. You can either be the Beetle or the Apostle. So ericpbishop.com, and then for my books, it's easier just to go to Amazon and type in Eric P. Bishop or type in The Body Man. I'll come up. Should be the top of the list. I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. EPB author. Instagram as well, Facebook. I'm even on Threads. Jumped on Threads this year. And it's kind of one of those less active sites, at least from my perspective. I know other people have opposite opinion of it, but I still get most of my interaction with people from Twitter, from X, basically.
Well, there you go. So everyone, Breach of Trust. It's the Body Man series, book 2. Eric P. Bishop. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you, sir.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.